it's really important to get out and do at least like a 20-minute, 30-minute walk with the dog. It's kind of nice. It just clears your head. I don't really think about too much else, regarding work and stuff. So that's nice in the morning to kind of get out and get some fresh air and a little bit of exercise. I try not to have a coffee too early. So like I do drink coffee, and I think it'd be a tough day to go a full day without, but I find it is more useful to have it like after at least an hour into the day. You don't need it right first thing in the morning, but about an hour in is where people's levels kind of start to dip. And then that's where, the caffeine might kind of perk you up.
Let's learn how our next guest gets up, dress up, and show up on purpose. Enjoy the episode. Hello, morning enthusiasts. Welcome to the Best Morning Routine Ever podcast. I am your host, Dr. Lunit, and today I have the honor of introducing a very special guest to the show, Levi Campbell. Levi is a dedicated industrial hygienist and partner at Aura, driven by his belief that everyone deserves a safe and healthy work and living environment. With a diverse background in mining, metal refining, construction, and manufacturing, he brings extensive industry knowledge to identify health risks and hazards in the environment. So I'm really, really excited to have him on board. So with no further ado, Levi, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Now tell us about your journey. How has this, the health and safety spectrum been has been intriguing for you and kind of led you down this path?
Sure. Yeah. So I kind of fell into it almost by accident. I was doing the sciences in university, and I had never heard of the industry at all, like industrial hygiene. If you had asked me during my undergraduate, I wouldn't have known what that is. As a lot of people don't. And then I happened to get a job. When I graduated, I happened to get a job just almost by luck. There, I was searching Craigslist. It's kind of hard sometimes after you graduate with an undergrad. And I saw a job for environmental consulting, and I didn't really know too much about it. And so I kind of fell into that by chance. And then that's kind of like a very niche little section of industrial hygiene. And then from there, I explored it further and went back and did a master's and kind of, now practice more broad scope industrial hygiene. But and I don't think that's uncommon for a lot of people. It's kind of a small niche industry. And I think a lot of people kind of fall into it by chance. It's not really well known, like, everyone knows, lawyers, engineers, things like that. But not too many people know what industrial hygiene is. A lot of people think we clean teeth when you just, talk to someone at a party or something like that. So, yeah.
Yeah, that is interesting. Yeah, it is super niche. And I myself had to look it up. But then I worked at a gas and electric company, and I can see the need, right? Because then you're working around all the metal, you're working around the engineers. And a lot of times you might come across this. There are, what do we call them? Those labor laws that come into place, that environment has to be certain risk and safety protocols have to be put in place. And so I was very intrigued to know that, this is a position. It's not something you can go to college and say, I'm going to study this, but you do fall into it, as you mentioned. So tell us about Aura Health and Safety and how you are helping companies and keeping people safe in those environments.
Sure. Yeah. So we're a consulting company. The principal, Mona, and myself started it up in 2016. We were both with like a larger firm, and then we found that having a smaller firm allowed us a little more flexibility to focus on take jobs on that were more of interest, and just more flexibility. So that's kind of basically how Aura was started, just to have more flexibility in projects to take on. And then, so we work in a wide variety. So as you kind of mentioned at the beginning, we are in the mining industry. So we help mining firms. A lot of the time it's around monitoring like the actual workers, exposure to metals and rock dust and things like that. And then any programs that go with that. So programs in place to help mitigate those exposures and keep those kind of workers safe. going from one end, like really heavy industry like mining, to something totally different. We do a lot of work in the film industry.
Oh,
So film industry, there are some, exposure hazards that we do help people manage and mitigate, and then everything in between. So sometimes it's government, construction, so any kind of like exposure. So that's the kind of neat thing about industrial hygiene, is that I'd say there's few workplaces and few industries that do not have some element that could potentially be, looked at from an industrial hygiene and air quality standpoint. So there's not too many industries out there that, we couldn't potentially do some work in. Yeah, so a lot of our work's in mining and film, but and construction, but we do the odd job in other industries as well.
yeah, no, that's it. That's interesting to hear. When you said film, that just kind of like light bulb went off. I didn't think that industry would actually need an
Mm-hmm.
industrial hygienist to come in, because I think of this as with a lot of people that are part of unions too, right? Like, do you
Mm-hmm.
find is
Yeah.
that okay?
Yeah, yeah, lots of unions, multiple different unions in the film industry for sure. So yeah, sometimes we will work right with a union to like help them solve something or look at something, and then other times we might be hired by the employer and they might be doing something, that's not against the union, but just coming at it from a different standpoint. So for sure.
Yeah, and I can maybe see you getting hired from the government piece of it, especially for like a gas and electric company, as I said, when it's like government, what county wise and all that, because then those regulations.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And we do lots in government and like kind of like semi-government, like energy and stuff. Some of them they're like private companies, but at one time they weren't. And it's basically government funds and stuff. So we do lots in that realm as well.
Yeah. So when I'm just talking about slips and falls and a wet floor, we're talking about mitigating risk. Let's dive into that. What some of those hazards that I imagine chemicals, fumes.
Right. That's right. Yeah. So typically it's usually kind of in three broad steps. So typically when we get brought in, first thing is to recognize and kind of identify the hazards. So you come in and, you might do a walkthrough with somebody, or it might be information they present you, or there's lots of different ways you might get that information. But once you've kind of identified those potential exposure hazards, then you want to evaluate it. So sometimes that might be, doing air monitoring, or it might be something more qualitative and visual. But yeah, you basically want to kind of come to figure out what the risk might be. Is this a high risk, or is it something more like moderate or low? And then from that point, then you can work on controlling and mitigating it. And you have a wide variety and a hierarchy to follow. So if you can just kind of eliminate and remove the hazard, that's preferred. That's not always possible. Sometimes it's just inherent to that specific industry or project. You can't remove the hazard. So then you move down the line and go to like engineering solutions. So, can you improve the ventilation? Can you isolate it? Maybe you can build like a barrier around the hazard or something like that. You see that a lot in like the asbestos abatement industry, where if they're doing asbestos abatement, removing it from a building, they'll build like, a negatively pressurized containment right around the building or the room, and then just kind of, isolate it from the other areas where there might be other people. Then you can have things like administrative controls. So there's things you can do administratively to help, minimize exposures. And then a last resort, but unfortunately it often does play quite a big role, is personal protective equipment. So things like respirators, gloves, things like that. That's never the preferred option, just because there's lots of potential ways that people might not wear it properly, or it might fail. But yeah, that is in the I guess toolkit for mitigating exposures.
Yeah, and I bet that was huge for you during the pandemic. That was a big growth.
Yeah, we did. So a lot of people didn't know what, the pandemic hit, and a lot of people were kind of like, nervous, like the economy wasn't good and whatnot. And we didn't know really what to expect because, like, we work in so many different industries, and we ended up being, busier because we did,
Yeah, sure.
especially the film industry got hit really hard where it was very difficult for them to work under a lot of the COVID protocols and whatnot. So yeah, we were pretty heavily involved in, exposure planning and mitigation works in that realm. Yeah.
Yeah, especially like hospitals and the safety area there where you
Mhm.
know germs and all that
Yeah, yeah.
comes into play. So it's interesting that it can be applied across the industry, multiple industries. Um,
Yeah, it's one of the things I like about the industry, to be honest, because it keeps things new and interesting. Like I never know, we can get a call any given week for some industry that like I know nothing about, and then it's almost like being back in school, but all the time it kind of keeps you sharp because then you have to research and you have to find
yeah.
out, okay, like what does this industry do, and like figure out all the things that might be applicable to that exposure hazard that they're calling you about.
Right. And as the same way that you and your team are being educated and are learning, if it's a new industry that comes to at your desk, you are also training and educating the opposite end, right? You're teaching other people. You have a
Yep.
platform, and
Mhm.
that's very dear to you. So let's talk about that.
Sure, yeah. So we can do education and training in various ways. Sometimes we'll get retained to, in some form of like either public speaking or speaking to workers, like actually in person. So it might be on like hazard awareness. So just for instance, you might get called in to talk to a group of workers about some chemical that they have to handle, and what are the health effects, what are the safety protocols, like so something like that in person. Sometimes we will get retained to develop training like programs. So it might be something like a hard copy, like a PDF, like a safe work procedure or something like that. And then other times it might be something that we actually like a training program, like on a learning management system. Like we might actually like
Mm.
have training with like embedded videos and questions and, material content like that, where they would actually maybe do like an hour-long course or something, and they could do it online. So that's another way that we have done training in the past.
Yeah, and informing the not just the employees but the employers,
That's
so
right.
that they
Of
can
course.
prevent
Yeah.
a lot of that stuff
hmm
in the future. What's some of the I don't want to say horrific, some of the things that you've seen that could have been prevented, that like spill that acid on somebody's arm or something like.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything quite like that. A lot often, luckily, it's more like near misses or things like that. Like a few years back, like
Yeah.
quite a while back now, there was a scare at the ports where like something like basically like there's the big sea cans that they transport things in, and it just basically like blew up kind of. And so there was
Yeah.
like, and they don't know what's in it because there's thousands of them, and they come from all over, and like this one I
Hmm.
think came from China, and like they didn't know if it was labeled properly. And so like as far as I'm aware, no one really got hurt or anything like that, but like it was a big scare. It shut down the port for a very long time, and like it's got big like financial implications, and the union wasn't happy and things like that. So I've seen situations like that. Yeah, that's probably the best example I can give just off the top of my head. Luckily, I haven't been involved in any like where workers got like seriously hurt. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
mhm.
Yeah, thanks you for sharing that, because it can happen. So
Yeah,
like, we're doing a great job mitigating the risk, right?
yeah,
Making sure
yeah.
it doesn't show up. What about
hmm
environmental, in terms of like you just talking about the port? Because there was the oil thing years ago with the like. Do you have work in that magnitude?
So we typically are involved with worker and worker exposure. We don't do too much in the realm of like kind of environmental contamination unless it's, involving the workers.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, there certainly could be instances where we get called in sometimes, like with contaminated sites and stuff like that. There'll be like workers excavating, handling contaminated soil and things like that. And then we'll be involved more with monitoring their exposure. So making sure the workers have proper protocols. You know, are they wearing gas monitors to make sure they're not overexposed? Do they have the proper PPE on and like that? So that's typically how we would get brought into like a larger scale kind of environmental type situation.
Yeah, nice. Thanks for sharing. So,
Mhm.
let's talk about some of the habits that you put into place because there, you gotta prepare yourself as well. Let's
Yeah.
talk about morning routines. How do you get up, dress up, and show up?
Yeah, so for me, I don't have anything too fancy. I mean, a few things that are really important. I like to get out and definitely get like a little bit of exercise. So I'm not one of these people that does like some people do like crazy hard workouts and stuff at like 5 in the morning. So that's not me. I can't do that. I do have a dog, and it's really important to get out and do at least like a 20-minute, 30-minute walk with the dog. It's kind of nice. It just clears your head. I don't really think about too much else, regarding work and stuff. So that's nice in the morning to kind of get out and get some fresh air and a little bit of exercise. I try not to have a coffee too early. So like I do drink coffee, and I think it'd be a tough day to go a full day without. But I find it is more useful to have it like after at least an hour into the day. I forget where, if it was online or I read somewhere, but I had heard like I think a doctor who knows much more about it than me kind of say the same thing. And I think it's something to do with cortisol levels or something where, you don't need it right first thing in the morning, but about an hour in is where people's levels kind of start to dip. And then that's where, the caffeine might kind of perk you up. So I do like a morning coffee, just not right away. And I like to just kind of have a look at my schedule, and make sure that there's, no new emails. Cause, in this industry, sometimes I'll wake up in the morning and kind of, you glance at your phone and there'll be some email and something like bad happened like the night before or something urgent. And it's
Yeah.
something somebody needed like yesterday. And it's like, okay, so this is important and this will change my day. So I might have had a calendar plan from the week, but this changes things. And so, I like to know that pretty early in the morning if that's going to affect my day. But then otherwise, I like to just kind of confirm and make sure that the calendar that I had lined up already, that nothing's changed. If I have like something really intensive, like a report or something like that, I do find I'm a little more productive in the morning. So I
Yeah.
might make sure that that's kind of in my first couple hours of the day. And yeah, that's really it. So nothing. Oh, and a good breakfast. So like eggs, or make sure you get a bit of protein, something like that. If I try to just work off of like no breakfast or fruit, then it might be a bit of a hard go. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, you're planning to optimize your energy throughout the day. That's essentially
that's a
that's
good way to put it. Yeah, that's right.
yeah, that the morning routine does that for you. And I hear it a lot. The notion of working on the hardest task first is eating your frog first. And a lot of
Okay.
entrepreneurs does that because I guess you're all there mentally. Your brain, you're the beta waves, everything. You're just so fresh from
Mm-hmm.
resting all night. So what's a big daunting task at 2 p.m. is a lot easier at 9, 8 a.m. because you don't have decision fatigue. You didn't you utilize all your willpower, your brain power
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, I see that. So yeah, I would
to get
agree.
around to it. Yeah.
Mhm.
Thank you for sharing that. That helps just people knowing that morning routines, it's tailored, it's yours, right? It works
Yeah.
for you. Your motto is optimizing energy for throughout the day. That works. And people, we love to hear the different ways we utilize the morning routine so that we can show up. You show up for your clients, you show up for your team members and your family and everything. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, of course.
Tell us, where can we connect with you? Where can we find you?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So we do have a website. It's aurahealthandsafety.com. So AURA and then health and safety. We're located in Burnaby, British Columbia. So up here in Canada. I'm on LinkedIn, and Mona and our other staff are on LinkedIn as well. So that'd probably be the best way. Either through the website or on message on LinkedIn, I would say.
Perfect. Yeah,
Mhm.
appreciate that. We love to leave with a quote or a favorite saying if you have one. Ditch it out.
Oh my goodness. Good quote or favorite saying? That's a tough one. I wasn't expecting that one. Um, I would say just kind of in the theme of the show is not a quote, but just don't hit snooze. Like I find like you gotta get up and kind of get to things early. And I find if there is a day where I'm kind of hitting snooze and a little slow in the morning, then yeah, probably not going to be a an effective day. So yeah,
Because
kind
it
of
sets the
after.
tone.
Yeah.
It sets the tone for the rest of the day. That's well put. I like that one. You
Mm-hmm.
tailor it to morning routine. But yeah, hitting snooze just it's a domino effect of some things you don't want out actually. So thank you for
Mm-hmm.
sharing that.
Yeah, of course.
Perfect. Thank you for coming, Levi. It's been an honor. It's been a great joy having you on the show.
Okay, yeah, of course. Yeah, thanks so much for having me on. Nice to meet you.
Yes, perfect. You too.
Hope you enjoyed today's episode. Please comment and tell us what was your favorite part, your favorite habit that you are going to try out for yourself today. Comment below. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe. Until next time, I will see you at the top of your best morning routine ever. Stay blessed.